Welcome back to another deep dive on The Explainer. Now, we've previously covered the musician who lost his wife, the kidnapping that created winter, and of course, the dad who ate his kids. But today? Today, it's Pandora's turn, and we are going to tear down the optimistic lie of a very familiar myth to expose what is, essentially, an ancient cover-up. If you think you know this story, trust me, you only know the sanitized version. We're going to decode exactly how a myth of absolute divine vengeance got completely twisted into a simple cautionary tale about human curiosity.
Okay, let's dive right into this because pretty much everything you've been taught about Pandora is fundamentally wrong. I mean, the image you likely have in your head right now is a woman who, driven by a simple flaw of curiosity, opened a box she wasn't supposed to and accidentally doomed all of humanity. But here's the thing. She wasn't just curious. She was literally programmed to open it. The gods did not punish humanity for her mistake. They planned the whole thing from the very start. In this original context, Pandora wasn't actually the first woman. She was the first weapon. Section 1. The Pandora Cover-Up. So, to really understand this massive deception, we have to look past Pandora herself to the actual inciting incident. And that is Zeus's real motive regarding the legendary titan Prometheus. You know the story. Prometheus genuinely loved humans, so he famously stole fire from Mount Olympus and gave it to us. Now, Zeus was absolutely furious, but it wasn't actually about the fire itself. He was terrified of what that fire represented, human independence, right? With fire, humans suddenly gained the ability to think for themselves, to build, to forge, and ultimately to challenge the gods. Zeus couldn't just take the fire back, the damage was already done. So he demanded immediate, highly calculated revenge. Moving on to Section 2, Forging the First Weapon. Now what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the assembly line of this revenge. Knowing he needed a punishment that humanity would literally welcome with open arms, Zeus enlisted the other gods to build something beautiful and terrible. They systematically programmed a weapon. Hephaestus, the blacksmith, sculpted her from clay. Athena bestowed weaving and wisdom. Aphrodite layered on beauty and irresistible desire. And then there's Hermes. The trickster god hardwired her with lies, cunning words, and a deeply deceitful nature. They didn't just create a person here, guys, they built an exquisite trap. In fact, her very name, Pandora, translates directly to all gifted. Why? Because every single god contributed a specific gift to her creation. But let's be clear, these weren't gifts for humanity's benefit. I really want to emphasize this. She was not a person in the way we think of one today. She was the perfect, irresistible instrument of divine vengeance, a gift-wrapped trap engineered by the entire Greek pantheon.
Section 3, the setup and the jar.
Okay, so now that this ultimate weapon was forged, Zeus needed to deploy it. And every great crime needs a mark, right? Well, Zeus found the perfect target for his setup. He gave Pandora to Prometheus's brother, Epimetheus. And get this, his name literally translates to afterthought. I mean, there's some incredibly dark humor going on here. Prometheus had explicitly warned his brother to never, ever accept gifts from Zeus. But Zeus essentially married his perfectly designed trop to arguably the dumbest titan alive. Epimetheus took one look at her God-given beauty and just completely forgot his brilliant brother's warnings.
And this brilliantly illustrates the biggest misconception in all of mythology. We all think Pandora arrived with this delicate little jewelry box. But the reality? She arrived with a massive sealed clay jar known as a pithos. This was absolutely not something that sat neatly on a vanity's table. A pithos was a huge, heavy storage jar used in ancient times for housing vast amounts of wine and grain. Zeus gave her this massive container as a wedding gift, and basically said, hey, whatever you do, never open this.
But here is the horrifying part that always gets left out of the storybooks. That jar wasn't empty. Zeus pre-filled it. He packed it with every conceivable evil he could possibly create. We're talking disease, plague, sorrow, despair, famine, toil, madness, and old age. That makes up the vast bulk of the contents. But way down at the very bottom, buried beneath all that horror, in just a tiny 4% sliver, he placed one thing. Elpis, or hope. So, the execution of this plan was basically foolproof. Let's walk through it. Step 1. This massive jar sits in her home, literally whispering to her daily. Step 2. Hermes had specifically designed her to wonder, question, and deeply desire to know what was hidden. So her God-given curiosity takes over. Step 3. She lifts the heavy lid. And Step 4. The trap springs. All those evils fly out like black smoke. Invisible spirits instantly swarm the earth. And for the very first time, humanity felt true pain. They got sick, they aged, they broke their backs working and still starved. Terrified, she slammed the lid shut. But it was way too late. The payload was delivered.
Section 4. The truth about hope.
So everything flew out of that jar except for that tiny sliver at the bottom, which brings us to the most debated twisting part of this whole explainer. 3,000 years. For 3,000 years, scholars have fiercely debated what it actually means that hope, elpis, did not escape with the other evils. Why was it trapped inside? What was the original Greek intention behind leaving hope locked away? Well, the debate usually boils down to an optimistic lie and a brutal reality. The lie we tell children today is that hope stayed behind to comfort humanity. You know, even though we suffer, we always have a little bit of hope to keep us going. It's a cute story. But in the brutal Greek reality, the original author Hesiod believed hope stayed inside the jar because Zeus wanted us to suffer without even the relief of hope. Or there's an even darker interpretation. Hesiod believed hope was actually the most evil thing in the jar, a curse in disguise.
So the crucial point is really Hesiod's underlying logic here. Think about it. Disease, famine, and war are absolutely terrible, yes, but they're quick. Hope makes you tolerate them for decades. Hope forces humans to endure misery they might otherwise just walk away from. It keeps us toiling, sweating, and suffering, hoping tomorrow will somehow be better, all while the gods sit up above and just laugh at our endless labor. It's a really chilling thought.
Which brings us to Section 5, Zeus's PR campaign. So how in the world did we get from a terrifying myth about a weaponized clay jar and the curse of hope to a sanitized fairy tale about a nosy woman with a pretty little box? Well, in ancient Greece, the true myth of the Pythos jar and divine vengeance was widely understood. But then we hit a massive turning point in the 1500s. A translator, Erasmus of Rotterdam, was translating Hesiod's ancient text into Latin, and he made a catastrophic vocabulary mistake. He translated the Greek word pythos, which means massive storage jar, into the Latin word pyxis, which means a small box. That single typo permanently renamed the myth to Pandora's box. And by the modern day, the story had been totally watered down, shifting the focus entirely onto female curiosity rather than divine sabotage.
Ultimately, the true lesson of the source material is that Pandora wasn't evil. She was a loaded gun, pointed directly at humanity as punishment for the crime of receiving fire. The real moral of the story isn't "don't be nosy." The ancient warning is this: the gods will punish you for getting too smart, and they will blame a woman for it. Blaming women for the entire world's suffering was, literally, just Zeus's PR campaign to cover his tracks. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Is hope a blessing, or is it the final curse? If you learned the truth today and realized it was never a delicate little box, I want you to drop the word jar in the comments below. Engage with the community and let me know your take on Hesiod's dark view of hope. And hey, make sure to join us next week for another explainer, where we're doing a deep dive into Prometheus, getting his liver eaten daily by an eagle, and exactly why he thought our independence was worth that horrific price. I'll see you then.